Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining the monthly membership call for the CVA. I want to thank everyone that has attended. I'm sure it's 9 o'clock sharp, but I'm sure we'll have a couple of people join us. But as we go through tonight's agenda, I wanted just to make sure that I first cover the agenda. So in tonight's meeting, I'll be giving some opening comments and giving our operations update. Then we'll be going into our committee updates. This evening, we actually have Mark Keeley, our GR representative, to give us his update on both Ottawa and some of the provincial updates. And then for communications, unfortunately, Shay had a personal commitment and she could not make it today. And then lastly, Ross will be giving us his membership and treasury update. And then, of course, any questions from the membership we'll take at the end, or during some of the at the end of some of the committee updates. So, from a CVA operations update, the first update that I wanted to give you is that we will be releasing our membership survey. It's a substantive survey that was created with myself and the board to get your feedback on a vast array of issues and items, and making sure that your voice is heard. That membership survey will run 2 weeks. You should have it in your membership section of the CVA website. We will also be providing it to everyone through a SurveyMonkey link that we'll be able to put out there. So it's really important. We figure that the survey will take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. And we just ask that the more information that you can give us, the more substantive that we can continue to make our policies, and make sure that we're getting the feedback of all of our membership. Oh, sorry. The next will be a update of the board. We'll be going through from our board what our goals are. And what are some of the main items that we'll be working at in the third quarter of 2017. We have had some changes at a board level that due to some conflicts of interest with some of our programs. Daniel David and Joel Verboek have departed from the CVA board as directors. Both have played an instrumental role within our organization, and we wish them all the best in their future endeavors. We'll continue to work with all stakeholders and on like-minded issues and initiatives as we move forward, and we look forward to to ensure equitable access to vapor products across Canada. CVA goals for the third quarter of 2017 is the CVA is in the process of designing its accreditation and certification program. I'll be covering that in detail after the GR committee update from Mr. Keeley. In the third quarter, we're also is our meetings with the HESA committee members regarding both S5 and educating elected members on vaping, its value for Canadian smokers, and our industry and the CVA. Last will be the planning and executing of our 2017 annual general meeting. Are there any questions in regards to the operations update? Okay, so I'll turn it over to Mark, who will give us the GR update. Mark, go ahead.
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you, Mark.
I'm at a distinct disadvantage. I can't hear anything, so I'm just gonna do my piece, Daryl, and then I'll just sign off. I can't hear a thing here. This is one of the biggest frustrations I have with these webinars. I just don't know how these things. I can't hear a thing. Listen, I'm just going to chime right in. You've given me some time, Daryl, and the board to talk about updates with respect to what's happened in legislation and what's happening across the country with respect to federal legislation and some of the provincial legislation. I want to sort of go off script a bit here, Daryl, and I want to memorialize a bit of some of the actions that have taken place and how we got to where we are so far. If I could just start, maybe one of the things we didn't really touch on, and we're not really touching on here, is how Canada got to Bill S5. And I think it's fair to say, or fair to point out, that a lot of this really emanated from the Conference of the Parties, which was held in India this year, COP7 it's called. And COP7 is a World Health Organization initiative through the United Nations. It's 180 countries that come together on an annual basis or every 2 years, whatever the mandate of the Conference of the Parties are. And they discuss issues with respect to healthcare. Now, this last COP7 in India, the primary focus of this was on vaping. I should say that in a lot of ways, the world is not our friend as it relates to vaping. The World Health Organization asked the Conference of the Parties to engage in a convention that would for all intents and purposes, make illegal vaping throughout the world. And many countries signed on to that convention. The one holdout with respect to this was the United States, but Canada said they would not sign on to the convention and came home suggesting that they would look at legislation to enact some kind of regulation with respect to vaping. I think that's an important distinction for us to understand as members of this industry, largely because it suggested that number one, vaping would be positioned in Canada as a go-forward opportunity, and secondly, that they would look at some kind of a regulation at the national level consistent with what's been happening at the provincial levels. All of you on this call know that provinces sort of jumped the gun as they were waiting for some national legislation, and the federal government, particularly Health Canada, was waiting for the Conference of the Parties to finish to do what they did with respect to Bill S5. So I got to say, in a lot of ways, in advance of the COP7 and in advance of what had happened with Bill S5, I think it's fair to say, and many of you on this call who are members of this organization should realize that your organization had a lot to do with Health Canada suggesting that vaping be a regulated entity. What we did say to Health Canada was, if you're going to go down the path to put it on the Tobacco Act because it was going to be convenient and expeditious for you to do that, then I think it was fair to say that we did a lot to ask them to put it in a secondary category. So if you look at the Tobacco Act right now, there's a stream or a category for tobacco, and there's a stream or a category for vaping. That's very important, and I think it has a lot to do with the good work of the Canadian Vaping Association to make a very poignant case and a considered case to Health Canada and the Minister's Office to make that happen. So here we are right now. We have Bill S5. It went through the Senate committee. It went through the Senate. It has received approval at the Senate. It has been passed over to the House of Commons, and it's gone through first reading in the House of Commons. That's also a very important distinction, because we understand now that the House of Commons has recessed for the summer break that there are some folks in Ottawa who are suggesting that the Prime Minister, because he's in year 2 of his mandate, might prorogue the House of Commons, which would mean that he would, for all intents and purposes, want to do a restart, and everything that is not on the order paper would be taken off the order paper, and it would have to start all over again. But because this piece of legislation has now received first reading, we're in good shape going forward when the House comes back and a new speech from the throne is made in the fall of 2017. So I think we've done a terrific amount of work as a Canadian Vaping Association. I want to say we're not out of the woods. There are going to be a lot of fights, and there are going to be fights with stakeholders. There are going to be fights with members of Parliament who are reviewing this. For those of you who think we didn't do enough, I'm not going to apologize to you. I think that the Canadian Vaping Association and the work that we have done has been extraordinary at best. I think the world will see, and your organization will be used as a test market and a case study for how you do this, because we said at the outset that we would work with government, and we have. We have been very, very effective in dealing with the government on this, and even the opposition. And I think that's a very important distinction as well, because many people on the Conservatives have suggested that this piece of legislation is too permissive. And if they had their druthers, they would actually go the way of COP7 and look to not only regulate this a lot more than it is, but probably look to quash this altogether. So I'd heard a lot of members on Facebook, because not only do I see it, but so does Health Canada, and many people in government see what you write. But when you say things like Bill S5 is that we should fight it, who are you going to fight it with? You're going to fight it with the opposition, who want to make this a lot tougher, who think that it's too permissive at the outset. I really want to know a lot why CVA, not members, but CVA or vaping individuals across the country would think that this is not a good enough exercise, because we're only really at the start. When you think about the fact that we are now going into regulation, we have an even bigger opportunity to put our best foot forward and show our brains off to help Health Canada as they hold the pen on the regulations, to put effective regulations that help us. My message overriding for this is, I've been in this business now for almost 30 years. I know how government works, and I know that if you work with government, you're going to get a better outcome than if you work against them. And if you think that some of the tactics that that I've seen, where vaping people across this country would complain bitterly that we're not doing enough, I would really advise you to think again. I think we have the confidence of not only Health Canada, I think the CVA has the confidence of the minister herself. I think we have the confidence of the HESA committee. We have the confidence of the Senate, almost to a senator. We have the confidence of many MPs. We have the confidence of provincial legislation or legislatures as well. And let me talk a bit about that, because you've got a thing here, Daryl, about a provincial update. I think it's important to note, because it's almost like a domino effect, the work that we did in several provinces. Ontario right now is looking at waiting to see the outcome of Bill S5, and that's already happened. But they want to actually go even slower on the regulations in the province of Ontario, largely because they want to mesh, and I think this is an important distinction for you to understand, mesh what's happening with vaping to that of marijuana. There's a piece of legislation right now in Ottawa on marijuana that will be hopefully the Prime Minister wants it passed by next July. But in the legislation, what the province had, or what the federal government had said, was that we will look to the provinces for distribution and options for distribution across the country. I bring this up because I think the work that we have done in several of the provinces for this puts CVA in a particularly enviable position. If we do this right, and if you see the merit in what we're doing, and you sign on to this, that the qualified vape shops across this country could in effect add a secondary income stream through accreditation and certification by being a distribution mechanism for marijuana moving forward, which would be a very, very good role for this industry coming up. So when you look at how that happened, the province of Manitoba, for example, had suggested that they would qualify or put in their regulation a very distinct nomenclature for how they distribute vape products in the province through qualified vape product shops. That issue will have a domino effect across the country. We're hearing that now, and we're seeing that play out in provinces like British Columbia, who have a hybrid approach similar to what the province of Manitoba has done. Ontario, as I suggested to you, will probably look to something along those lines. Alberta and Saskatchewan have not gone down the path yet with legislation, but we're going to be very close with them on the same kind of a model similar to Manitoba and British Columbia. You're seeing what's happening in the Atlantic provinces, and Quebec. Quebec is a very interesting issue for us as vapers. and I'll put this out to you because we're unaligned, and I'm saying to you that there are two right now parties who have filed suit against the government, CVA and the AQV. That unaligned or that alignment or misalignment is creating some very disturbing, I should say, issues with the government, who are looking for a joinder or to dismiss the issue based on the fact that they're not together. And I think it really doesn't. It does us a tremendous disservice not to be aligned, and that's playing out politically in the province as well. I want to just talk briefly about the looking to the future. We had said at the outset of this whole exercise some 2.5 years ago that we would work with government. And when I say government, I mean government universally, provincial, federal, and municipal. Well, let's look to the future. Right now, there are a number of stakeholder groups and a number of opposition folks, as I said earlier on, who might suggest that this would be too permissive, and we're seeing that play out. I think that with a government in the majority situation in Ottawa, this will pass, and we'll be fine to have this amended Tobacco Act, including vaping, which would move forward. And so people are going to have to realize that this is here to stay, and vaping is going to proliferate in Canada under a regulatory environment that's a heck of a lot stronger than what it was originally. I got to just level this comment, and again, I want you to forgive me for being so bold, but I have now been working on your behalf very effectively with some great people in this organization across this country who are dedicated to that message that I said earlier on about working with government on your behalf, and we're seeing the fruits of that. If I could say this, and Daryl, I don't want to be bold, but I will, the government is waiting for you to go rogue. They love to hear vapors say things like, it's my right. They love to hear people in the vaping community say, just leave me alone and let me do what I need to do, so that they could regulate you excruciatingly hard. And the temper in this whole thing is really the CVA. So I want to make sure that you know that despite the fact that a lot of people are suggesting that we need to be a lot tougher, or that we need to be louder in terms of our opposition to some of the things that are happening, I would suggest to you that the path that we're taking is the best path that has us not only working with the government, but being effective when we need to be in terms of putting our best foot forward to make the kinds of changes that need to happen to make this industry work effectively for you going forward. We have put our best foot forward from the very start, and I can tell you that now working with organizations like the Accreditation Council of Canada, with the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, with other stakeholder groups, and the media have put us in a very enviable spot. I know I'm being asked right now by virtue of some of the work that we've done, not only in Ottawa, but in several provinces, to speak on this globally, to put forward some of the things that we've done effectively, where other countries are saying, how did you do this in Canada? And how can we emulate what you've done as CVA in other countries to be as effective as you guys are? I don't want to go much further than that, Daryl. I think it's really important that this organization come together. I see a number of comments on Facebook that are, I would say, to me, a little disappointing at best. And they castigate not only the efforts of this organization, but they lay asunder some of the good works that we've done. And when you criticize government on Facebook, or you criticize government on social media, I want you to know that they see it. And not only do they see it, they make reference to me every time I speak to the government, and we speak to them very regularly. And they think that despite the fact that there are some folks out there in vape land who like to go at will, facing off against government, they do have a tremendous amount of confidence and respect for the work that the CVA is doing. So I hope that helps, Daryl, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
The I don't know if this is um, just reading some messages. What do you say? I guess Mike was just saying that I'm just trying to read. It's coming in several questions here.
Sure.
Okay, so I guess if I'm surmising what Mike is saying is, and hopefully I get it right, Mike, is that we should put more of this type of communication together in order to make sure that we get this out to people. You know that people have already gone rogue, and that a transcript of what Mr. Keeley is saying right now needs to be shared everywhere. So I think and I appreciate that comment, Mike, and that's something that we've been really trying to do. Like, I think if you want to talk about Mark, how we got to the accreditation and certification file, I think you've been a
Sure.
leader on this for a long time, and I think that that's something that people should hear.
Very happy to weigh in on that, Daryl. One of the things I think that this organization needs to understand very, very clearly is that there is a how shall I say this, an animated attempt at the federal level to put some kind of rigor and discipline around who gets to detail people in public on vaping and under what circumstances would facilities who manufacture e-liquids or hardware or any of the issues that are used for selling vape equipment or vape liquids are accredited. So there are two streams here. On the accreditation side, the government wants to know that there are standards in place that are put into we'll say process, I guess, done. How shall I say this? That are done in a way that is compliant and conforming to what Health Canada agrees to, and they will not let anybody do this. I think it's very fair to say, and I'm hearing again in social media that some folks say, well, if we could do some kind of a standards of our own, if we could put our own standards and public policy in place, let's do that ourselves. They just won't let us do that. So they're looking for us to channel a lot of our accreditation programs and processes through a qualified organization, and that would be the Standards Council of Canada, with whom we're dealing right now. So CVA and the Standards Council of Canada are looking at a full-blown accreditation program that people who are going to be in this industry will have to conform to if they want to stay in this business, to manufacture liquids or to look at manufacturing hardware and selling them there too. So that would be from a manufacturing perspective. And then they want to make sure that all of the qualified vape product shops are accredited too. And that would be similar to an accreditation program that you would see if you wanted to be a licensed mechanics shop. Everybody who would, the place would be accredited because it would have these policies and procedures, these standard operating procedures in place, and it would qualify or have to be qualified under a rigorous accreditation program that would be conformed to what Health Canada would want. So under accreditation, I think we're well down a path to look that way. Under the whole issue, Daryl, of certification, I think it behooves us to work very closely with Health Canada, because there are some pretenders to this. And I will tell you right now, for those of you who watched or listened to the Senate committee hearings, the convenience store folks had suggested you don't need a qualified vape product shop. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do this. We've been in business forever and ever, providing great service in communities as convenience store owners, and we can do this ourselves. The comment that came back was no. CVA has been working very closely with us to put in place some kind of rigor in terms of a certification program, and we're working very closely with qualified private career colleges to put some kind of a curriculum together that would, for all intents and purposes, give some certification program to all of those who would be in this industry There is no intellectual property that anybody has the rights to right now, much like what contrary, I should say, to what I'm hearing out there on social media. There is a very concerted effort right now through CVA to brand an accreditation and a certification program that would be that would have conformance and the support of Health Canada moving forward. Daryl, who's your executive director, had suggested to Health Canada in a call that he was on that he would have that in their hands by August 1st. And we're working very hard, Daryl, to make that happen so that Health Canada could work with us to bring this forward.
And
But
Mark,
that will.
I think one of the questions is this is from Wendy. Why does CVA want to do what ECTA is doing? And I think it's important while both you and I are in the call to kind of differentiate what we're talking about here and what we've been asked to deliver from stakeholders.
We've been asked, we've been working or been trying to work very closely with ECTA on this, and frankly, Daryl, I don't know why ECTA doesn't want to participate with CVA to collaborate, I should say, or to coordinate this effort. This is not a money-making venture. This is a conformance issue. This is Health Canada saying to us that we want to see some kind of a program, and if you don't do it under the conformance measures that we'd like to see in place, we'll do it for you. So I think CVA and ECTA should be working very closely together.
I just think that within our preview and mandate, and to be clear on accreditation and certification, we're really talking about what the best practices that have been developed by you, the membership, over all these years for a product vape shop. That's really what we're trying to get to. And from ECTA's point of view, I certainly see when it comes to manufacturing, e-juice, all of those types of items, that's well within their preview. As a not-for-profit board and as a market leader, the CVA and the membership of the CVA is being counted on to be able to bridge this gap and is trusted by government, CVA and its membership, and me now as an executive director. I'm very proud to be part of the organization. Is seen by government as being able to deliver this, and that you, the membership, will embrace it. And that's, if you look at the message that we drafted for the industry, we certainly, I think, outlined what we thought the value was and the risks of not following through on this. We're not trying to replace ECTA, and we don't feel that that this is a crossover on ECTA's mandate or our mandate. We've been asked plainly, and Mark, you're far more elegant than I am, to deliver this product.
You're being nice by saying we're being asked. We're being told. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're saying you do this or it's going to be done for you or on you. So
yeah,
we can fool around with the lexicon.
Yeah, this is not about us versus ACTA, or we support all organizations that support and work towards greater acceptance and access for people to move from smoking to vaping. And we believe that, again, it's an unprecedented harm reduction opportunity in Canadian history. So it is our mandate to deliver on that for the membership, for the organization that started 4 years ago. So
I think the watch out too, Daryl, is that if we don't go down this path, it's going to be done for us.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be done through any other organization, save and except for Health Canada, and that's what you don't want. And so I think they're being very good with us right now to say, brand this under your national organization, CVA. You have the lion's share of members, and you guys have done extraordinarily well to put in place some conformance issues that we buy into. But let's make sure that it's done right. And I think right now we're working with Health Canada to get this right. And Daryl, I think I don't know if your members know this or not, but we speak quite regularly with Health Canada.
Yeah.
And they like the fact that we're joining and collaborating with them quite well on behalf of members.
And I think the last piece is that the provinces are watching as well, and both Mark and I and others from the CVA board have been part of meetings where provincial leaders and policymakers have said very directly that they want to hear from and understand exactly how that the CVA and its reach can deliver this program as they go into considerations for their own provincial regulations and legislation.
Darrell, you're too nice of a guy. I got to say this because you pay me to work very closely with government. You pay me to position this industry very well with governments across this country. The sniping that's happening out there in public by vapors is creating havoc among government policymakers and by regulators. And when you hear things like a yin and yang, I don't like what I'm hearing at a CVA. I want to find some other organization that's going to say what I want them to say is just not going to cut it. Government likes what we're doing. Government wants to work with CVA. They want us to show leadership among vapors across this country to make sure that this industry is as robust and rigorous and regulate and adhering to the regulations that are being put in place to make sure that it's done right for the future. Otherwise, this plays into the hands of those in the opposition who say that this is too permissive at the outset. So I
Okay,
think we're on the right track.
we have one more question here, Mark. Go ahead with your question.
I was just wondering what employees would this affect? Anyone working in the industry, or is this on a shop level?
It's mostly, thank you for your question. I'm going to go into a little bit more of those details on the next slide. We're in the planning process, so I'll give you a high level of what that looks like. It really is under development. I think that's an important because we got another question in terms of cost, which is a very reasonable question. Obviously, as a not for profit organization, the drive of this isn't to make this punishing for the vape shop owners. So through the development of this, I think the important part, and this is what brings value, right? And we feel that this is what best demonstrates, certainly on the product vape shop owner side of our organization, the value you bring to Canadians, the value that you bring to consumers, the type of education that they would get. So if you look at regulation and legislation, when they get into regulation, they talk about items like you should be certified, right? When you talk about the handling of nicotine, you should have a certain base level of education. And that if you're, say, a store manager or a shop owner, you might want an additional information or education. So, for example, one of the things that we've talked about in great detail through our development process as we come to make sure that we're hitting all the most important elements of what you do every day is there be a section on really understanding federal and provincial regulations to make sure that that a shop owner and shop staff don't go down a path where they're doing and saying something or advertising something that they had no idea that they shouldn't be. So there's sort of it's best, and just go right to the next slide.
So do you need me anymore?
No, you go ahead, Mark. Thank you for joining us here tonight.
Okay, I'll talk
Okay.
to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks. Really, what it comes down to is being able to showcase those best practices, making sure that we understand and that staff has the right platform of information to understand any regulation and that's available for each jurisdiction and then federally. And that one of the things that government really enjoyed and they thought was a terrific step forward was that of Battery Safety Week. So they would like to see battery safety as its own section, something that not only do we try to promote, but we actually build some paradigms around educating both consumers and making sure that the trainers have the right information and then working with the stakeholder groups as mentioned by Mark is that's how we get buy-in and that's how it passes the credibility test so that you can work in partnership with industry experts and with those outside of the industry to say, you know what, this is the right platform. So while we haven't scoped in terms of what the costs are going to be, the hours per module, and what is going to be the detail module, we'll be working closely as an organization here this summer to get through all that. We'll also be seeking advice of experts to make sure that when we bring the finished product to government, that it'll have the credibility that they can sign off on it. This isn't just an internal exercise. It's to showcase that the industry is wants to work in partnership with decision makers and stakeholders. Therefore, if we're working in partnership, we're giving them the opportunity to say, "Listen, this is what we know is a best practice, and here's how it applies to the protection of youth, or here's how it applies to battery safety, or here's the importance of adult-only access, and here's how we ensure adult-only access." And these are the standard operating procedures and protocols that would make sure that we protect adult-only access, or that we protect consumers' need for information on battery safety. As I mentioned in the outline draft that I sent, we understand that many of you showcase these best-in-class principles each and every day within your business. This is just a matter of, and there will be opportunities for members' input through our committees as we get to some of the major themes, to make sure that, hey, you're not missing a major theme, for example. We really want this to showcase what the CVA has been working for 4 years, which is balanced and fair regulation. And this is one of the platforms that we see as our best opportunity to get there. So while I do that, I'll just look. Okay. I'm not. Okay. So, Wendy, I'll get back to that question in a moment. So from that, is there any questions directly to the principles of behind why? As we go forward with our partners at Young and Wagner and myself and our board, is there any questions as to why this is important? Okay. All right. I don't have any questions, so that's great. So I'll go to the communications update, and this will sort of go to Wendy's question that Wendy feels that the CVA needs to be more transparent to members. I feel that it's, being part of this organization and only being part of it for 4 months, I find it actually an extremely transparent organization. I think in a lot of ways it's impossible to answer everyone's question in a level of satisfaction to them. I think what you have to do as a principal board and a principal organization is make the best decisions you can make with the information available to you. Not everyone is going to make everyone happy. But I think when it comes to transparency, what we've really heard is more communication and better communication. I know certainly in the past 2 months, the CVA has taken the need for communication and substantive communication importantly. So we've been very focused on that. We've spent a great deal of time making sure that we create as substantive releases to the membership as we can, underlying why we think that these issues are important, and the passion of which the board is as a volunteer board takes these issues. We're utilizing our members page on the CVA official website with links to our social media platforms as a way to, as any strong organization would. Major organizations don't communicate via Facebook and instant messages. Messages that come out from the CVA to make sure that we represent the full membership and the board of directors is that messages need to be made sure that they're thought out, that they're complete, that they're aligned with the goals of the organization and that which has been entrusted to the board. We're pleased that Beatrice Singer has offered to support with the CVA. She's been fantastic to make sure that we're getting our releases out in a more timely fashion. Shay has been working hard to make sure that we get to our French translation, and that we're getting our communication out in both official languages. That continues to be our goal in Q3. In addition to that, is for further content development for the CVA website, as we're putting a lot more focus on that in 2017, and to revamp of the CVA newsletter, right? To make sure that we're hitting the topics in a very succinct way. So overall, from a communication strategy, and again, Shay apologize that she can be here tonight, but you will continue to see more communication from us. You'll see more transparency from us as it relates to how we're moving forward with major initiatives such as accreditation and certification. If the CVA has a disagreement with an organization, a body, or even in the case of Quebec with a government, it's the onus is on us to protect the mandate of the association. I have the pleasure of serving at I serve at the pleasure of the board, and I know that the board is aligned in this. These conversations and in-depth thought processes come very, 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 very honestly. And so from that point, I am proud of this. I am proud of this board, and as Mark said, I am proud of this organization. I know you're having a real impact, and that these can be emotional times. So on that, I think I didn't see if Ross was able to make it. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened to Ross. So he was unable to make the conference call today. So we'll have to push our membership update and our treasurer's update till next week. So what I'll do is I'll turn it over to our interim president, Sean Krieger, to say a few words, and then I'll take everyone's questions from there to close the meeting. Okay. Sean, are you there? Okay, not sure what's going on there. So okay, so for any questions, now's a great time. Okay, hold on. Sean, I got you.
Hey,
Hey.
good evening, everybody. I can't see who's here. I can't see questions, so I'm only going off everything I've heard in the last 45 minutes. I'm going to speak about the transparency thing really quick. I was completely on board with, why don't we know anything? We've never been told anything in all the time that I was just on the other side of these webinars. And I can say from the inside looking out now, I guess, if you will, that in the last, since February, January, we've been giving you guys everything. I've been making sure that the board as a whole, not just me, everyone's been making sure that any information we, like Daryl said, we get into a nice message that's clear and concise and actually says what we want to say. We're not just rattling off one sentence things. We're trying to give you guys a good feel and view of what we're doing. I echo everything that Mark said. I've tried to say to many people in many different arenas. I fully support and believe in everything that we're doing as a board and as an organization moving forward. I think we've put ourselves in such a great position that no other organization in North America has been able to do to get results that, are they perfect? Probably not, but they're never going to be perfect because government's all about balancing the wishes of everybody, right? You can only please so many people. But I think we're in a really good position to make sure that everything that we started as entrepreneurs 4 years ago, we're still going to be able to do if we choose in 15 years. And I think that's something more than any of us could have ever hoped for 4 years ago when we all started this craziness, out of our basements or our small shops or wherever it is. So I just want to thank everyone who came out tonight. I want to thank everyone who's a member, current, former. I want to encourage anyone who's not a member that hears this broadcast, call us, email us, ask us questions. If you want to join the association, we're always looking for more people, both as far as numbers go to make us look that much better in front of government, but as well as more minds and more thoughts and more perspectives only makes us that much stronger. That's really all I have to say. I support everything that I've heard tonight, and nothing was said tonight that I didn't already know about, so I'm not sitting here all freaking out. I think we're in a really, really good position, and nothing but good things coming for us if all goes well.
Great.
That's all I got, man.
Thanks, thanks, Sean. We got a couple more questions here that we'll take. So the first one we'll take is from Christina.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for the update. That was a lot of information. But about the transparency thing, I'm just gonna add my 2 cents to that discussion. I know at the last webinar, I asked whether meeting minutes would be made available. I was told that they would be, but I don't know whether that's actually happened. And so there's that question.
Yep.
And my other question is, I saw that this time around for the notice about today's meeting that there was a very brief summary of what the agenda would be. But I guess for me, transparency is about things like publishing meeting minutes, not just the members' meetings, but board meeting minutes as well, sending them out to the membership. Those meeting minutes have to be approved, and so it's kind of like, yeah, you guys have been posting to Facebook, and that's great, but posting to Facebook is not really communication in a structured sense, right? So these are the things that like associations do to be transparent to their membership. So I don't know if that's what the person who initially asked the question meant, but it is what I mean by transparency.
You know what?
Can I jump in here, Daryl?
Yeah.
Can I jump in here? Cool. I completely agree. We have a backlog of minutes that are currently being transposed and uploaded to the members area so that we can make sure that when we do release these minutes, we are working on it, not blowing smoke up your ass. When we do release them, that they're in a secure area that, sorry, right. Well, if it's smoking, it's broken. So that that when we do release them, they're in a secured area that, because the whole free world can't have access to this stuff. So we got to make sure that they're in good order, and we've had to track down some meetings from years gone by that are just on hard drives and people's download folders and 3 laptops removed. We are getting all those together. It's a huge undertaking. Once we get it all uploaded, then from then it's easy to maintain, but we're just trying to get that initial load. It's something that we've heard asked for even before I was even on the board. So it is something we are truly working towards. It's quite a bit of effort, but you have my word that I will do everything I can to make sure we get these up there in a timely fashion so you can see what's going on behind the closed curtain, if you will.
Okay, great. And then we have Taryn here. Hold on. Okay, go ahead with your question.
Sure. I just had one final question about the accreditation program. So
Yep.
I know we don't know the cost of that yet, but where would the funds generated from that be going?
The most likely the funds would go to the cost of the managing of the program. Like I said, we have not even scoped it out, so at this point it would be a complete guess. We're in the process of getting quotes on what it would cost to do the testing modules, what it would cost to host it. Anything that we would have to do to work with organizations that Mark had mentioned, it would go to cover those costs. I think it's important to mention that it's again that the CVA is a non-for-profit organization. It's not its mandate. Not only is its mandate not to well, it's not to lose money, but it's not to make money either. That's why we have a lot of the credibility that we do have with government officials on this file, is because it's important that you understand that it's important to them that this isn't a get rich quick scheme. Not suggesting anyone else is. I'm just giving you that their thought process is. I've done this with several other non-for-profit organizations over the years, and it's always been it's always been valued, and it's had a higher credibility level when we brought it through under that type of platform. So I, on that note, though, is that I feel by certainly by the next members meeting, I will be able to have an outline of what we think the costs are going to be, what the programs are going to look like, the impact on for product vape shops, and then of course, lastly, a lot of the great value that's going to be in there. We're going to spend a lot of time on items that we don't. Like legislation and regulation, and we're hoping to have some clarity. And I think one of the things that Mark didn't highlight enough is that Mark and I have started our tour speaking to the HESA committee members across the specifically in Ontario, and we'll be meeting with a few of the other HESA members outside of Ontario here this summer. And when we met them, and one actually happens to be an acquaintance of mine. He's like, okay, so why do you guys want to kill S5? He had no idea whether we opposed it, we were for it. He just it just didn't resonate with him because he just assumed because it was a vaping organization that we were against it. And what we said is that what we're looking for is balanced regulation, and we're taking accountability through that by going through a substantive process of just helping define best practices through accreditation and certification. That we've taken on that responsibility, and we want to showcase that to members such as the HESA committee. So it was a real eye opener for me. I think it was the one that really drove the point home that this is important. And when I talked to government officials at Ontario, it was something else. They only asked for three things, and two of them was one was an overview of S5, two was to understand the legal challenge in Quebec, and third was accreditation and certification. So one is a federal initiative. One is a Quebec initiative that we don't control. The third one was absolutely about our ability to tell the world about the immense value, right? And the e-liquid manufacturers and the product vape shops in this country have brought such a phenomenal program to Canadians. I think the onus is on us to make sure that we take every opportunity to showcase that. We understand that lifestyle marketing is never going to be allowed. It's never going to be allowed. But when I get asked questions about items like, well, how do we define education from marketing? This is how. Okay, so hold on. So sorry, John. Normally they were. John had asked a question about our membership numbers. My understanding is they have gone up from our last board meeting. I don't have the note in front of me. So we do continue to grow, but unfortunately Ross is not here, so I can't update either the membership or the treasury. I do apologize. But from I'll make sure that that all of those numbers will be available for you on the next membership meeting for anyone. And I will say this is that my email address is dtempest@thecva.org. Please give me a time and a number. I'd be more than happy to call you, and I'll be able to share that information with members in good standing. Absolutely. Okay, so I'll take one last look for questions. Is Potterweed going to be part of the accreditation program? No, Potterweed will not be part of the accreditation program. I think what Mark was talking about there was three things. the adult only access portion of the product vape shops is something of great interest, specifically when you're talking about these emerging markets and protection of children. So when people talk about adult only access, it's unique. Well, I kind of laugh because I can go into my liquor store with my 5-year-old in the LCBO here in Ontario, but I can't take my local juice supplier is actually a phenomenal organization down in Stony Creek, but I can't take my 5-year-old in there. So I think really where Mark was going to is that, and I shared a note with the board just as general interest. Wasn't that substantive, but that the cannabis industry is also going through their own self accreditation and certification program. Well, and without understanding what their sales model is going to look like, where we do have a good sense of what our sales model looks like because there's not a bunch of competing agendas to try to sell the product other than the people who are already selling the product today, which are product vape shops, convenience stores, and other such channels. So in this particular case, no, absolutely, weed and pot will not be part of the accreditation program. I think Mark was just trying to draw alignment as those principles is a core idea. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any more. So what I'll do is, again, I thank everyone for being on the call. And the last piece is that if you send me an email, I'll be more than happy to send you off my my cell phone information as well, and the office line. I look forward to speaking to all of you in the near future. Thank you so much.